Hollywood is being rebuilt by artists not afraid to disrupt the status quo, telling fresh stories and bringing to life characters who until now have been confined to the margins. This is Emerging Hollywood. Today, I'm sitting with a rapper, an activist, a businessman, and the host of Trigger Warning on Netflix and executive producer, my man Michael Render, professionally known as Killer Mike.
What's up, bro?
Killer Kill from the Ville, what's happening?
Man, damn proud of you. You know that, though.
Thank you, man. Same here for you.
We've come a long way.
We both came a long way.
Yeah, what I'm saying, we met on my promo tour.
17 years ago.
17 years ago.
2002, Purple Ribbon All-Stars.
Yep, all the reps and the record companies was afraid of you. They thought you only liked, I think, me, T.I., 666 Mafia at the time, maybe. You know what I mean?
How did growing up in Atlanta inform your point of view on racial and economic injustices?
I grew up in a totally black city, essentially. It was over 50% black. The leadership was black. The police chief was black. My teachers was black. Schools was named for black people. You know, I grew up in an economically integrated neighborhood, the Collier Heights. So our schools were a little better. So people like me and T.I. learned how to use big words.
Right.
You know, you know what I mean?
Did you realize how special Atlanta was back then as far as like having all that black representation?
I did. Okay. Because my family's from the deep South.
All right.
When you get shipped to the country in the summers, then you understand how lucky you are, how fortunate. But most of my friends didn't. They didn't have any idea. So I grew up really with us in power. I grew up in Wakanda. But growing up in Wakanda, I got a chance to see we do good and bad. We make good politicians and bad politicians. Our church is as corrupt as any other church. Our institutions are as good as any other institution. And that's not me down in Atlanta, it's just as much saying I learned to keep an eye on those in power. So I started participating in the political process a lot younger. So my grandmother was from Tuskegee. She participated in some of the marches with King stuff. She just thought being a part of the political process was absolutely what you were supposed to do as a citizen. My grandfather was a black man, but from a philosophical standpoint, was probably more like a libertarian. He wanted the government out of his life, you know, and he thought the worst thing that ever happened to blacks was desegregation.
I agree.
Yeah, you do remind me of my grandfather.
I kind of agree with that, though, because when we talk about black empowerment and black entrepreneurship and independence, all we got to do is start moving the way black people moved before integration.
Yeah, if you... the first episode of Trigger Warning, Living Black, that episode's idea came out of conversations with my grandfather. Even being born in the 70s and growing up in the 80s, my whole world still revolved around black people. We got our gas from a black gas station. We went to, you know, our vegetables came right off a black produce truck. So for my generation was probably the last generation of that, and everything became more corporatized. So when you hear black people say white folks, a lot of times what they're saying is corporations.
That's it.
You know what I'm saying? It's not even that they're saying literally you white people on the other side of the camera, but Whole Foods is not owned by someone who looks like us. So in his mind, the worst thing that happened to us had been desegregation because our dollar desegregated out. And we start thinking, you know, white folks' water was colder. And we start moving out of the neighborhood. And then when you start moving out of the neighborhood, you took a tax base out that provided for working class kids like me to have a better education because I lived in a community of rich black people too, right?
Who put that entrepreneur spirit in you?
I grew up in the crack era, so that helped.
All right.
You know, I don't think the crack era gets the proper accolades it
A lot of
deserves.
entrepreneurs.
A lot of entrepreneurs came out of it. But my mother, she was an artist and florist, and she didn't like working for people. The people in my family who I saw do what they want to do, whenever they wanted to do it, all owned the business. Once I got into rap and my heart kind of got broken the first go around, I just promised myself I'd never be totally dependent on my art again because it made me resent something I loved, you know what I mean? So I figured out getting into business, and out of that was born stuff like the Swag Shop. Yep, and Render Real Estate Holdings and things of that nature.
Why'd your heart get broken the first time around in the rap game?
It didn't work out, right? And it didn't work out for reasons that I didn't have total control over.
Got you.
Like I didn't have control over going to Columbia Records. I didn't have control over why I didn't get to go to Def Jam, or I didn't have control over any of that. But that was the first time in my life I had been out of control. You know, I was 5 little girls, older brothers. I was, at that point, two children's father. You know what I'm saying? I was a man to a woman. And all of a sudden in my life, the decisions of other people were affecting me in a way that was adverse. I never wanted to feel like that again. So I had to figure it out by myself. And the figuring out of that by myself was I Pledge Allegiance to the Grind as a series, and then rap music, and then Run the Jewels. And here I go.
Wow. You've always had messaging in your music.
Yeah.
But I feel like them 6 episodes of Trigger Warning got more of your messaging out than a decade of music.
Yeah, I know, right?
How does that make you feel?
You never know what God got planned for you, man.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? When I look back at the crunk era and how many people were literally catapulting up past me and just superstars. I didn't begrudge anyone. I didn't have envy toward anyone. But it was humbling because lyrically I knew like I'm fucking up the world, you know what I mean? And I'm saying these things, but I knew that the world that's not what they wanted at that time. Well, not as much of the world as I thought should want it. And the world caught up because everybody graduated college and went and got jobs, and then that shit hit them in the face. And it's like, oh, so God in the building might make some sense to me this morning. You know what I'm saying? So that's fine. You know, Bun told me when I dropped my first record, he said, you probably 10 years ahead of your time.
Wow.
You know, he said, I got to be honest with you. So it's going to be hard, but just keep trying and keep doing it.
I wonder if he saw that because of the climate of the South at the time or what?
Maybe. One of the most flattering things, though, that ever happened in my life was when I walked in the Trap Museum, and the first 2 albums were up there with T.I.'s Trap Music and my album, Monster.
Wow.
T.I.'s Trap Music is the first official trap album, and then it said Killer Mike makes the first attempt at making a conscious trap album. And that's really what Monster was.
Wow.
Yeah, like I was really coming out of selling drugs, coming into music, trying to reconcile that. That's why you heard, Mama, I don't want to sell drugs no more. You're like, I did not want to sell cocaine anymore. I had 18 ounces of cocaine above my kitchen cupboard when I made Monster.
Damn.
You know what I'm saying? I bought 9 and got fronted 9. Like, so that's different. That's not saying that they didn't trap or do things. That's just saying, you know, when you look at me and T.I., we literally were trapping. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Trying to rap. And therein lies the difference. I didn't want to be trapping. I was sick of that shit.
What was Michael Render's mind state when he was selling dope? Because you're
I can't believe I'm doing this
educated brother.
Shit. Yeah. People think you sell drugs because you're lazy or you're nefarious in some way. No, you got common sense. You understand that I can spend $50 and I can make $100. And if you're smart, you save your money and you double and you double and you double again. That's good business. And for people who turn their nose up at it, you drink alcohol.
Yeah.
They did the same thing with alcohol. They're doing the same thing with marijuana now, except the people who bore the burden of going to jail for the last 50 years aren't reaping the benefits. Mm-hmm. Yeah, us and people who speak Spanish that look like us. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So intellectually, if you had any sense in the 80s and 90s and you didn't think about selling drugs, you got to be one of the strongest minds I know because it was too easy not to do.
Now, was getting into entertainment with acting and the voice work and the hosting Trigger Warning, was that a path you were ever seeking?
Yeah, I like entertaining. You know, I've been a ham my whole life, so I love rapping, but I only rap because I was too chubby to break dance. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, I would have been turbo on them hoes. For me, I always wanted to be on TV. I used to love watching Real People, the Carol Burnett show, you know, Bob Newhart, Night Court, you know, so I wanted to be on television. I learned from TV. I watched a lot of PBS, too. Mm-hmm. Like, I watched a lot of Mr. Rogers. I watched a lot of Electric Company. So I knew that TV was a tool. Trigger Warning is as much a testament to public broadcasting television as any Michael Moore film that I stand out on as a kid, right? Mm. I loved Michael Moore, loved documentaries, but the fact that PBS taught me that it's okay to put a message in what you're doing. Absolutely. And it's okay to be overtly positive in that message. I got that directly from public broadcasting. So, you know, when I watched the Mr. Rogers documentary, I cried like a baby because I'm like, you know, I'm like a student of him and Tupac.
That's a hell of a combination.
Yeah, it is.
You're a longtime gun rights advocate.
Yeah, a gun owner, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. What do you think we as a nation should be doing to like combat the rise of mass shootings?
The shootings are going down. Okay. Right? So the world is not as violent as it was when we were teenagers. Mm-hmm. So you can actually wear your Jordans on the train and make it home. Mass shootings and white men, I don't know the answer to that because I live in a society that enables white men to see themselves as God, literally, mm-hmm. when you look at, and when things don't seem to go their way, these things start to happen. That's not castigating all white men. That's just saying when you talk about mass shootings, the face that pops up
is white kids having temper tantrums.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So my question begins to be, you know, what about white society allows me to think that it's okay to do that?
Ooh.
Well, let's look at how things were reported. When you report on a mass shooting, you report on a disturbed young man who had never shown signs of. When you report on a black kid shooting back at a kid who jumped him, you'll go find any dirt on that kid.
Absolutely.
When you report on a black kid who was murdered by a white vigilante, you'll find any dirt. When you report on a black kid who was illegally stopped by a policeman, engaged and murdered in the streets, why do you keep asking people who look like me to answer your gun problem? Because your gun problem seems to be with the person holding the gun.
That's a fact. Because we got our own issues in our community. You know what I'm saying?
Our gun problem is easy to fix. Jobs and education. Fix our gun problems. Provide jobs. Provide an environment in which young fathers get the encouragement and the underwriting they need to be the fathers. But in terms of why boys are shooting up high schools, and I don't know those answers, because culturally, that's not where I am. I know why our boys are doing what they're doing, and our boys just want some money.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like, you know, I live in Georgia. You from South Carolina.
Yes.
My cousin's from Alabama, from Mississippi. And the people that are around us who are armed. They still got M4s. They still got guns their grandfather on. They got Tommy guns. I'm not giving up one right that one white man hasn't given up. We've been free 55 years. If you think after 55 years of freedom, I'm giving anything back, I'm not giving up my right to freedom of speech, my right to freedom of travel, my right to gun. I'm not giving up anything. Yeah. I think any politician who's telling you to do so is an agent, and I don't trust them.
Have you given any thought to the death of Nipsey Hussle?
Every day.
And what that means to the culture?
Yeah, I cried, you know, the first 3 days, like hard, man. It's tragic, and it's tragic because we keep doing it. You know what I mean? And I say we because I accept my part in the bullshit too, because I've been on my bullshit before. We all have as black men at some point. Our pride and our ego get in the way of our logic and our sensibility and our empathy, and we end up doing things or saying things or causing us to act in a way that's just not good for the individual ourselves, the individual we hurt, and the greater community. And I just say shame, you know, shame on the brother that killed him.
Have you seen the meme going around that says, we gotta respect and honor brothers like Killer Mike and David Banner while they're here? You know what I mean? Don't wait till they die.
Yeah.
How did that make you feel, knowing that people look at you in that way?
I'm humbled and I'm honored. And with that, I challenge everyone to just be that person in your own community. See, if all of us do a little, ain't nobody got to do a lot. You know, my reasons for wanting you to be free are radically different. I've told people from the start, I like marijuana, I like strippers, I like partying, I like wilding out. So my desire for you to be free is to that. Larry Flint and Luther Campbell are as heralded in my household as Malcolm and Martin. You understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Because they fought for my rights to be free.
Goddamn right.
And that's what I want. I want you to be free to be who you are. I don't want to be your next wave of leadership that you're going to grow to resent and shit on one day.
So you think that we look at our leaders as fads at sometimes?
That's what we do. Because, I mean, that's what happens with ageism. That's what happens with the change of culture. You know, like, whether I agree with Jesse or Al, I cannot make light or joke of the blood they've shed on my part.
Damn right.
You know, when I see people make jokes about John Lewis being beaten at the Edmund Pettus Bridge, he took a beating within an inch of his life. And I knew the people that were there with him that day. I can't disrespect that by laughing at that, because I don't know if I would have been willing to take that beating. You get what I'm saying? I would have been a shoot back, so I might have got strung up in a tree. You know what I'm saying? So for me, I have to honor that.
So that's why I love you, man, because you got so much balance. You know, the scholar, street dude, you know what I'm saying, entrepreneur. But then your father was a police officer. How did that affect your views on the police?
I'm from Atlanta, so me telling the outside world I'm from Atlanta is like a Mormon white boy saying I'm from Utah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, you know, that comes with a lot of cultural significance. And what I mean by that is, in my interactions with police officers in my lifetime, I have had more positive than negative. Now, did the Red Dogs kick my ass a couple times as a teenager? Absolutely, they did, you know. Did I deserve it? Arguable. Have I been mistreated by policemen before, state patrolmen? Absolutely. But more times than not, have I been treated fairly and justly within DeKalb, Atlanta, places around Atlanta by police officers? Yeah, I have. And do I think that there's a value in black people being policed by people who look like them? Yes, I do.
Yeah, and black people from the communities that they're policing?
Absolutely. I think that Our policemen deserve no interest loans. I think they deserve better housing deals in the city. I think the same applies to our firemen and our teachers, because these are the people that are investing in our community on a daily basis on the front lines. So I'm an advocate for Black people being policed by Black people from their communities who look like them. Mm-hmm. And I'm also a big supporter of community boards. And I think that police who violate the rights of their constituents should have to pay. And that pay should come through some type of insurance payment or some type of loss of pension, depending on how egregious the act is. But you should answer to the people who pay your bills.
Do you think hip-hop has played a negative role in the perception of police?
No, I think the police have done a great job of fucking up their own public image. Yeah. And I think that can be fixed.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Because
is that an episode of Trigger Warning that's gonna happen?
I would like to. We gotta see. I'd like to see a resurgence of the police athletic league. See, the Boy Scouts ain't as big in our neighborhoods as it is suburban neighborhoods, right? But the cops are there. They're always there. Mm. And I think that if you start to solve that problem, you start to solve bigger problems. If you got officers in here who know how to use their hands and grappling techniques, teaching these boys, then you have young men who are getting out that warrior-like spirit right there with the officers, right there with the people who are going to talk to them at some point in their teenage years. So there's a line of respect and communication that's grown there.
What made you want to specifically say, I'm going to focus on barbershops? I'm going to open barbershops. What about the barbershop?
Bell and Wilder Barbershop on Simpson Road did a lot for me. Mm-hmm. Like Mr. Bell and Mr. Wilder, they were my master class in manhood and opening the door for a woman and how to speak to people and how to disagree and not be disagreeable. You know what I'm saying? And I said, if we can have Floyd's and Supercuts and Great Clips and all these other places that kind of get shitty haircuts to white suburban kids, why can't I take the same spirit of multi-locations and give a great haircut and provide a safe place to socialize? It's crazy, because 6 years ago, I did a show here, they say on this date.
Yep,
probably 7 years ago, a year before that, I bought my first barbershop online, sight unseen. Pissed Shay off.
Wow.
Yeah, she's pissed with me now, too, so it's just, some things never change.
What, you didn't tell her that you was doing it?
Nah, I just bought it.
I don't see that. I feel like you run everything through Shay. Like
I do. Yeah. But you only learn from making a mistake. So,
so you did it once, you never did it again.
You know what I'm saying?
What else you got planned in the world of like TV and film?
I'd like to do something animated, and I'd like to be in feature film.
You got anything in mind, or?
In terms of the animated stuff, I'm working on some cool stuff.
Okay.
I'm working on some cool stuff.
That means he can't really talk about it,
not
saying,
yet.
But it's in development.
Yeah, exactly, to their green light.
And when the next Run the Jewels album coming?
Man, we're up here working. I came up here a few weeks ago. We got five knocked out. L just did his anniversary with his girl over in Costa Rica. I think we're gonna get back up in New York and get back up in LA and get this thing done, man. I'm ready to get back on the road. See y'all.
You say you got 5 done. How many do you need to have
10.
Run the Jewels for?
Yeah,
10.
I just want 10. Yeah.
All right.
People ain't got the attention span for no 20-song album no more.
You've been vocal about supporting Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, that's my
Senator
man,
Bernie
OG.
Sanders. Do you identify with Sanders because of your views on radical politics align?
Yeah, well, more than my views, I didn't grow up under the branded Martin Luther King that you all have grown up under. Mm-hmm. I grew up directly under the mentorship of the people that organized with him. You know, right? So that means if this is Dr. King, this was the person that's my mentor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I've got firsthand knowledge. So when I hear about the beloved community of Dr. King, when I hear about Kingian nonviolence, when I look at King's policy in terms of workers' rights, rights for the poor, what truly progresses people, then what matches up from an agenda standpoint seems to be Sanders. And you know, if you go more extreme like than that, you talking about, you know, you got to be going Green Party, you know, to go more extreme. So for me, the greatest chance I've seen of Dr. King-like policy being passed on a national level has been with Bernie Sanders.
I love the senator. Do you think he's been fumbling the ball a little bit this go around? Like,
I think he's gotten better this go around.
I know they asked him about reparations, and he was like...
Well, actually, a week ago, he came out and he said if elected president, he would support H.R. 40. Well, what's H.R. 40?
It's just the research of it.
Ta-Nehisi Coates turned me on to H.R. 40, though. So John Conyers was in Congress for 30, 40 years, since 89 had been trying to pass that bill. Just to research. It's 30 years at this point. Sanders, he takes the question, jostles it a little bit, but all of a sudden, that hashtag goes from having 27 hits online to all of a sudden 2,700 hits online. I would argue if you didn't have a lightning rod like Sanders who's willing to hear the question, I think that the conversation has evolved forward. Yes. I think without Bernie Sanders in the race, that conversation never would have evolved.
Just the conversation about reparations in general?
Yeah, okay. I don't think it would have evolved because I don't think any other candidate would have taken it. Because when you ask me about reparations, I have my idea what reparations are.
Okay.
And I'm sure someone else has some reparations, but just as a people, I'll tell the secret. We ain't had our black people meeting to see what we asking for yet.
Nah.
And the only two people who have honestly given us a good map for what we should ask for are not even involved in the conversation. One of those people is the Honorable Marcus Garvey and the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And of all the black people that are running around screaming about reparations, when I say, well, what should we ask for? Dr. King, we know in his last 2-3 years of life, started asking for land. Land grants, land lotteries, What Muslims want is a document that Elijah Muhammad put forth to let you know exactly what people who the American descendants of slaves should be asking for in payment for what we had. If we're not discussing those things and we're simply saying, what do you have for us, then that's just like asking for welfare.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? So I'm not criticizing the movement because I want the movement to prevail. If you're an American descendant of a slave, I want some type of reparations to be paid, given, or acclimated to you. But before we get to that part, what are we asking for?
People got mad at Senator Sanders, but he honestly just asked the question. He was like, what is the reparations? You know what I'm saying? And he wouldn't say yes to something he doesn't even know what it is people want.
My mom said, no, when you ask for something, know what you're asking for.
Absolutely.
See, what if this man says, yeah, okay, I'll give you, what do you want? And you say, well, I want $2 million. Okay, well, here's $2 million. Well, what if it turns out what you really were worth was $20 million?
Yeah.
Now you've taken $2 million, you lived your wildest fantasies, you had the most fun year of your life, and trust me, I'm a rapper, it's easy to spend $2 million in a year. The government's gonna tax you $800,000, then you're down to 1.2. You're gonna get the nicest house you can find. If you're in the South, you can probably get a nice one for $600,000. So you got $600,000 left. And then you have the rest of your life to figure that out. You're probably gonna buy a Lamborghini Jeep.
Something dumb.
Yeah.
Big ass chain.
You get what I'm saying? So we gotta start asking ourselves, okay, what can we learn from other groups? Now, what I would have asked, I would say, if Georgia's 35% African-American, then I would want 35% of the marijuana business from hence going forth to be African-American. That means in terms of land ownership, growth, and development. I would like for some type of land lottery to be given. I've had to do a lot of research on this too, because, you get your nuts checked, you go read.
Yeah.
Frederick Douglass never thought the United States should have to give reparations. Frederick Douglass, who was the most photographed person in the 19th century, the Barack Obama of his time, thought that only the people who own slaves should be responsible for. See, I disagree with that. But he was an actual slave.
Wow.
So who am I going to argue with an actual slave? But see, for me, if the government allowed it, the government should acclimate something.
Yeah, because everybody reaped the benefits of it that was white.
What I would like to do as a black community is for us to start holding some Sunday meetings that are not online, that are not on live, and let's start talking what we want and what we deserve. Because 54% of all African Americans live in the South. The South is still great in terms of land ownership. We could own that part of the country. Essentially, I want black people to think of yourself as Mormon in the South as Utah. I want you to start thinking, what could we do from a power-based perspective there? And then let's put it in.
Can we legalize polygamy there, like in Utah too?
I would like to. My wife ain't with it though. I actually slapped me. But for me, I would like to know what are we asking for. And I think that what we ask for starts with what Muslims want by Elijah Muhammad. It starts with the study of the Honorable Marcus Garvey.
And you're right about the Senator Sanders thing, too. The Wall Street Journal did a study where they said that the most reparations has been mentioned was when Ta-Nehisi Coates did that article for The Atlantic.
Yeah.
And then when I asked Kamala Harris about it on The Breakfast Club.
Yeah.
And it was like that was the start of the conversation happening. Because it went
I don't
from
think
her
that was
to
a fair
Bernie.
question for her. I mean, not saying not in defense of her, just saying she's not an American descendant of a slave.
Yeah.
She's of Jamaican descent.
But you mentioned Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey was Jamaican.
Yeah, I know he
So
was.
how
I didn't
can
say he wasn't. But he came with a plan. His
Okay.
plan was a Pan-Africanist one. His plan would have not only held America to accord, it would have held Jamaica and Britain to accord, it would have held France with Haiti to accord. So yeah, he was like a master thinker, a master teacher.
If you're not ADOS, you can talk about it if you have a plan. Basically.
Yeah. I'm not saying no one else deserves to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just in matters of how it's really going down, what do you think about it? You probably want to ask someone who's a descendant of it because they're going to view it differently.
Got you.
You know what I'm saying? Your great-grandparents actually toil the land in South Carolina. You have a right to the Geechee and Gullah Islands that a black person who's from Louisiana may not have. You know what I mean? Because that land was toiled there by your people.
And I'm 97% West African. You know what I'm saying? I did my DNA test. Now, what subjects have you yet to tap into on Trigger Warning that you want to explore? What we gonna see for season 2? We better see season 2 Netflix.
Yeah, I like to see what black polygamy is hitting for, and that can save the black community. I like to create a high fashion brand. But who knows, man? There are just questions I have about black privilege after reading your book.
Okay.
Like we do have certain privileges, and why aren't we taking advantages of black privileges? Like, why aren't we working from a place of power? You know what I'm saying? In terms of black privilege. It's like I'm friends with people from Asian communities, from Vietnamese communities, Korean communities. Whatever starts working, they start doing.
Yeah.
Oh, tennis is it? Oh, yeah, you playing tennis, kid. You know what I mean? Like, oh, engineering is it? Oh, you doing engineering. Like, so from our power base, we tend to talk down on our power base. Oh, don't rappers and singers and dance. No, that's what they're paying us to do. No, hold up. We're going to get some Sammy Davis Jr. and Michael Jackson going on. You're going to sing and dance, and then we're going to take this money and invest. So I'd like to see in the real world what that looks like. So, just some of the crazy thoughts I have.
Killer Kill from the Ville.
Man.
Always a pleasure talking to you, man. You know I love you too, my brother.
Absolutely.